Alrighty, and we're back. Today we are going to be talking about the key homeopathy terms, part one, and we're going to go through and break them all down. Now, the first set that we're going to work on are these 5, okay? Don't worry about the words. By the end of this presentation, it's my goal that you feel incredibly comfortable with all of them. The first, repertory. The second, rubric. Rubrics, they're just symptoms, okay? Rubric equals symptom, rubric equals symptom, rubric equals symptom. The third, repertorize. The fourth, the totality of symptoms. Remember, we said rubrics are symptoms. So basically, we're just saying the totality of rubrics, okay? And then 5, materia medica. So don't worry if you don't know what any of these words are. We're going to go through and break them all down right now. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to explain a lot of things, and then we'll talk about the definitions, okay, or the words again. So just bear with me. Our goal is to get there, but we're going to take a little bit of an interesting way to find our way there. So remember, what's our goal in homeopathy? Our goal is to find the simillimum. The simillimum is what? The single remedy that is going to be most beneficial to that particular person. Now, to do this, we need to find symptoms. We use symptoms, we use rubrics, right? Rubrics are just symptoms. So in order to find the best fitting remedy, we need to know not just do they have a headache, but we need to know everything about their headache. Where is it? How does it feel? You know, do you get any other symptoms when you get a headache? You know, maybe you get super hungry, or maybe you get super thirsty, or maybe it only happens, you know, when you see your mother-in-law. Oh my gosh. What are all the situations and circumstances and symptoms that come around, you know, with that headache that helps us find the best remedy? Just a headache, it's too general. So what we're going to do is we're not actually going to use a headache as an example. We're going to use an example of ankle pain. Okay. So let's look at someone who has ankle pain. Now, this is a screenshot from a computer program that homeopaths use. This is a digital version of a book, what would be found in a book, okay? So don't freak out on me. Everything is going to be okay. All this is just a screenshot, a digital version of a book that a homeopath would use. Now, in this book, what we do, right? What's so important in homeopathy are the symptoms, are the rubrics. That's so important. That's how we're going to identify exactly the remedy that this person needs. Why? Because when we give a substance to someone, a healthy person, we find out all of the symptoms that they have. And it's all of those symptoms that we can use to match with what a patient has in front of us, or a person has in front of us, and say, oh, it's this remedy that they need, because I know that this set of symptoms is very similar to the set of symptoms that they actually have. So the more symptoms that we know about, and the stronger those symptoms are, the more closely we know that that's going to be a good match. That's how homeopathy works. That's how a homeopath finds the remedy that you need, okay? So here's how it's cataloged. There's a book. It's a book that has all sorts of symptoms, all sorts of rubrics, and how those symptoms or rubrics are cataloged is by chapter. Here, I just got to move this so I can see what I'm doing here. So for example, there's a chapter on extremities. There's a chapter back. There's a chapter head, eyes, you name it, okay? So it's organized by basically body part, but by chapter. And it's cataloged in a way that allows you to find a particular symptom, a particular rubric, okay? Rubrics and symptoms are the same. So after we identify, the symptom or the rubric, there's then a list of remedies that are known to have caused this set of symptoms. One of those symptoms being ankle pain, for example. So if I give X substance, it causes ankle pain. I now add that to my symptom or my rubric of, hey, this remedy goes in that category, okay? Hopefully that's making a little bit of sense. Now, here's the thing. You got a person who's got ankle pain, right? You're a homeopath. You're trying to find the right remedy for them. If all they tell you is they've got ankle pain, guess what? There's 255 or more remedies that could potentially be helpful to that person. So that doesn't help me. If there is a simillimum, if there is a single remedy that is helpful or going to be most helpful for that person, having 255 remedies to randomly choose from is not going to be an easy thing. I don't know. I'm going to have to give you 255 plus different remedies to find out which one helps you. So that's not getting us anywhere, and it's not getting us there fast. So what we want to do is we want to collect an assortment of symptoms, okay? But we'll get there in a second. A homeopath has this book. This book is called a repertory. A repertory. Inside of the repertory, we have all of these rubrics, okay? And rubrics are just symptoms. So in this book called a repertory, we have all of these rubrics, which are cataloged in a very linear fashion, right? Like Hahnemann was a smart guy. He wants to catalog everything. We have these rubrics, or all of our, I should say, our other homeopaths who cataloged all our symptoms. We have these rubrics, which are symptoms that then contain a list of remedies that have been found within that rubric, within that symptom, that match that symptom. So we've got this, and they're cataloged by chapter, generally speaking by body part, okay, like extremities, you know? And that's what we have. So that's our first layer. We've got a repertory. A repertory contains rubrics. R goes with R. Repertories contain rubrics. And we know rubrics are just what? Symptoms. And then as those symptoms appear, we've got all of the remedies that match with that particular symptom. So to help illustrate this, I'm just going to show you a chart. I'm just going to pick 4 random remedies: arnica, lycopodium, sulfur, and ruse tox. Okay. Now here's the thing. How do you pick those from those 255 if all you know that the person has ankle pain? Even still, how would you pick from those 4 if all 4 of them match ankle pain? Okay. So arnica, lycopodium, sulfur, and ruse tox are 4 of the remedies of these 255. And I'm just going to take you on a journey of seeing how the homeopath would deduce the remedy that that person needs, or most likely needs. And again, I'm just illustrating here, all 4 remedies match ankle pain. How am I going to choose between those 4? I don't have enough information to do it. So generally speaking, very general symptoms aren't helpful in homeopathy. They're not giving us enough information to individualize the medicine, and we want to individualize the medicine. We want to find the simillimum. So we need to look at more specific symptoms, especially if a symptom is strange, especially if it's rare, especially if it's peculiar. Those are like homeopathic gold, and I don't mean Orem. Those are the things that are really going to help us identify the remedy that we need, because they're unusual. They stand out, you know? If you have a strange, rare, and peculiar symptom, unlike ankle pain, which has 255 remedies, if it's a strange, rare, peculiar thing, maybe there's only a handful of remedies that are found within that rubric, helping us more easily, more quickly find the remedy that would be most helpful to find that simillimum. So what do we need to do? Again, we need to individualize. We need to ask questions. We need to find out more information about that ankle pain. When did it start? Where does it start? How bad is the pain? What does the pain feel like? Does anything else happen with it? You know, whatever. So in this case, one other symptom that we can identify is that warm applications ameliorate. So amel means ameliorate or improves the pain. So by putting heat onto my ankle, maybe a hot water bottle, you know, hot infrared, whatever, by putting heat on the ankle, the pain improves. So this is an additional rubric that we can use. And this rubric only has 43 remedies in it, right? So that's a lot better than 255. Now we're going somewhere, okay? So another symptom that the person has is, again, something that makes it better, something that makes it ameliorate, is warm applications. So now look, arnica, lycopodium, sulfur, and rhus tox, they were all present in that previous rubric. They all had ankle pain. So it was kind of like, how do I pick and choose here, right? But guess what? By now adding a second symptom that this person has, we were now able to help remove, like, you know what, maybe arnica isn't so great because arnica isn't improved by heat, or at least it's not found in this rubric. So maybe it's less likely arnica. Maybe out of our 4 choices, maybe it's looking better that it's one of these 3. Maybe it's lycopodium, maybe it's sulfur, maybe it's rhus tox. But at least we're kind of, paring down the option that it might be that person needs. Okay, can you see where we're going with this? So now that's 2 symptoms. But what if we had a third? Extremities, pain, ankles, motion ameliorates. Okay. So what this is saying is, even though my ankle hurts, even though I have pain in my ankle, it actually feels better. The pain feels better when I move my ankle, right? That's kind of weird, right? Like typically you got something that hurts, you don't want to move it. You want to let it be still. So this is kind of a unique thing. Like, actually, no, my pain's better when I just keep walking around. Like, okay. So that is kind of a unique situation. And this rubric only has 16 remedies. So we've got from 255 to 43 to 16. And also I now have another rubric that I can use to help pare down my remedy selection. So here we go. So arnica doesn't have heat ameliorates and doesn't have motion ameliorates. So it's looking, because I've asked more questions, because I've gotten more information, because I know more about the symptoms now, arnica, while it looked like a great choice to begin with, equally with all the rest, it now doesn't look so great, does it? Of our 3 symptoms, it only has 1 of them. And of that 1 of them, it's like a super general symptom that like everyone could have ankle pain. No, any remedy could probably help ankle pain. So arnica's looking less good now. Interesting, lycopodium doesn't have motion ameliorates. So maybe lycopodium isn't a great choice either. But check this out. Sulfur and rhus tox, both of them have all 3 symptoms. So instead of now having to pare up 255, now having to pare down 4, we're looking at maybe it's one of these 2 remedies that could be the similimum, that could be the single remedy that's going to help this person the most. Okay. So the other thing that I just want to point out here is it's not just, how many rubrics does that match, but also what's the strength? Oops, sneak peek. What's the strength of that remedy for that rubric? So check it out. We have rhus tox and we have sulfur remaining. So let's just look. Let's look for sulfur. We see, where are you, sulfur? There you are. Okay, notice that's in normal text. Let's look in sulfur down here. Okay, that looks a little fancier. Okay, it's blue italicized. Okay. And then down here we look at sulfur and that's just a normal text. Now go figure. The more fancy look in the text is, the stronger that remedy matches that rubric. So for example, if you're just plain text, you match it. If you're the blue italicized, you match it better. And if you're red, cap locks, bold text, like you match it even stronger, like really good. Okay. So another layer of insight is that not only does the remedy match the rubrics that we use, but also the strength of that intensity. Like, does it really match ankle pain? Does it really match warm applications ameliorate? Does it really match motion ameliorates? Or like, it just matches a little bit, like, yeah, it kind of helps a little bit, like ameliorate that, blah, blah, blah. So we're looking not just at what matches, but what is the intensity of the match, okay? So now let's look at rhus tox, for example. Rhus tox, red, bold, cap locks, like, okay, that's a strong match. Let's look at the next one. Rhus tox, red, bold, cap locks, like that's a strong match. And then again, red, bold, cap locks, that's a strong match. So even though both sulfur and rhus tox technically match all 3 symptoms, all 3 rubrics, rhus tox has a much greater intensity at which it matches. So between rhus tox and sulfur, which one do you think is going to be a better choice, right? Rhus tox. So let's just look. we're not just looking at the match, but we're looking at the intensity of the match. And ruse tox, whoa, 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 it matches those symptoms much more intensely than sulfur does. So if you were to choose between sulfur and ruse tox as the first remedy to start with, right, ruse tox would probably be a better choice. Now, another thing that you can do. Now, okay, let's just recap for a second. What were we just talking about? What we were talking about is we had this book, and I showed you a screenshot of it. This book was that book that we looked at was called a repertory. And a repertory contains rubrics. And what are rubrics? They're just symptoms. And when we look at those rubrics, what do they have within them? A list of remedies that we know have matched. You know, that someone, somewhere, somehow has proved that that remedy belongs in that rubric, that remedy has been proved through a proving to match that symptom, okay? So that was a repertory, that was a rubric. Oh, and you know what? I'm gonna layer in here totality of symptoms, also known as the totality of rubrics. So when we look at this, right, we're not just looking at one, right, symptom of ankle pain, we're looking at the totality of symptoms. How we choose the remedy is based on the totality of symptoms, the totality of rubrics, not just ankle pain, but how does ankle pain match with heat ameliorates? That also matches with motion ameliorates. So the totality of symptoms, when we look at all of the symptoms, the total of symptoms, that helps us identify that ruse tox is the best choice. It's not the single symptom, it's the totality. All of the symptoms combined give us the best choice or better choice of ruse tox, okay? So I wanna layer that in. The other thing I wanna layer in is this process by which we ask, you know, we receive, we collect the symptoms from the patient and we identify rubrics, we identify the symptoms, and then we plug it into the computer program or we do it by hand, and then we see which remedies match. And then we get something like this, which shows, you know, oh, these are the remedies, this is how they match. This whole process where we use a repertory and rubrics within the repertory to come up with the best remedy, that's called a repertorization. That is where we repertorize, we use the repertory and we find rubrics and we find the remedy. That is the repertorization process. That's where we repertorize. So that is another one of our words of the day that I want to make sure you guys understand. So another thing that we can do is instead of just looking in a repertory, now that we've already done the repertorization process, we've already repertorized. Now what we can do is we can look at a different type of book. And this book goes medicine by medicine, homeopathic medicine by homeopathic medicine in alphabetical order, go figure. So we'll start with our A's, we'll come all the way down to our R's, like ruse toxicodendron. And here we can read about that medicine. And we can learn, you know, there's a whole bunch, just like the repertory goes chapter by chapter. You know, here we have generals, extremities, it'll say back, you know, it's organized differently based on the specific book. But in this case, with Roger Morrison, his desktop guide to keynotes and confirmatory symptoms, I just took a screenshot of some of these. And so we can see, like, if we read about it, okay, generals, amelioration from warm weather, warm bathing. Interesting. Well, we knew that this ankle pain was like greatly benefited from, you know, warmth. Okay, wow. A general amelioration from motion, cannot sit still. Ooh, well, we know that this ankle pain was better from movement, right? Ooh, okay. Ruse tox has a proclivity for arthritis, for pain. Okay, wow. So what we can do is not just take our repertorization at face value. We can read in this book called A Materia Medica, that goes medicine by medicine. So the Materia Medica goes medicine by medicine, and we can read about that medicine. What is ruse tox about? What does it do? What is it helpful for? And just read about it from a general perspective about what it's used to treat and what it's beneficial for. And that's what we've got right here, okay? The other thing while we're here is I just want to point out this. It says ruse toxicodendron is one of our most important polycrests. Well, what's a polycrest? Now, what a polycrest means is it is a remedy of many uses. It's a very helpful remedy, and it's a commonly used remedy because it's very useful. You know, it's kind of like, what can't you do with a duct tape? You know how like some things are like more useful than other things, like duct tape. You can seal stuff. You can make a chair. You can make a wallet. You can make a belt, right? Like you can get really creative with duct tape, doing a lot of things. Also, like Scotch tape, like, you can only do a couple of things with, and you can't do so many things with Scotch tape, maybe like not as many as you can do with duct tape. So what a polycrest means is a remedy of great importance and often the common use. It's a very useful remedy, a very valuable remedy. You're more often to use that, you're more often to use some remedies than others. So even though there are thousands and thousands and thousands of homeopathic remedies, not all of them are equally useful. Some remedies are more useful than others. Some things in life are more useful than others. So that's what a polycrest means. Poly, many, crest, I have no idea, but poly, useful, many uses. We'll just take it as that. Polycrest, many uses. Okay, I guess we can talk about keynote, but I think pretty much everything else we've got down now. So what are our words? Repertory. Repertory, again, it's that book that goes rubric by rubric, which is just symptom by symptom, and all the remedies for a symptom go underneath that, right? They're cataloged by chapter, cataloged basically by body part, and it has all them. You then find the rubrics you want to use based on the symptoms that the person has, and then you can find the remedies that overall best match all of those rubrics. We call that process a repertorization. It's where we repertorize, where we use those rubrics in the repertory to find the best fitting remedies. We find the best fitting remedies, a remedy, by the totality of symptoms. We're not just looking at ankle pain. For example, we're looking at it's ameliorated by heat and it's ameliorated by motion. We look at the totality of symptoms. Side note, typically wouldn't even use just 3 symptoms. We look maybe even more like 6 or more to find the best fitting remedy. So totality of symptoms, again, is just the totality of rubrics. We're not just looking at one individual rubric or one individual symptom. We're looking at all the big picture, the whole picture. And that's how we get our totality of symptoms. Materia Medica is a different kind of book. A Materia Medica goes medicine by medicine, and it talks about the medicine in more of a general way. Like, oh, it's really useful for arthritis. It's, better with heat, better with motion. You can kind of get a general understanding of that remedy in the Materia Medica. Now, a keynote we haven't directly talked about yet, but a keynote is just like an very common, if not obvious, if not required might be a strong word, but very likely to be seen if this remedy is required. It's like very closely associated with this symptom. So for example, a keynote of ruse tox is that it is the symptoms are improved by heat. They're improved by heat, by warmth, and improved by continued motion. So is it possible that you would see someone who needs ruse tox who's like not better with heat and not better with continued motion? I mean, sure, maybe anything's possible, but it's like not very likely. So a keynote of ruse tox is very likely, it's going to be improved by motion, and very likely it's going to be improved by heat. So that's what a keynote is. It's a very characteristic set of symptoms, or a very characteristic symptom for a particular remedy. So for ruse tox, improved by heat. For ruse tox, improved by continued motion. Similimum. Similimum is the single remedy, the best fitting remedy. And polycrest, right? Poly, many, crest, who knows? It's a remedy of many uses, a very commonly used remedy. Ruse tox is one of those remedies, especially for arthritis, especially for joints and muscle pains. Like ruse tox tends to be a very helpful remedy. So again, repertories have rubrics and go rubric by rubric. And underneath the rubric or that symptom, it'll have the list of remedies, and not just the list of them, but the intensity by which they match that symptom. And then Materia Medica go medicine by medicine. And I just took a screenshot on the left, just an example, like it just goes alphabetically, in order. And then if you were to open up any of those ones alphabetically, you'd then get a whole little chapter on that particular remedy. And then you'd even see like the generals, the extremities, the back, the stomach, like all the major chapters that go under that remedy so you can learn more about it. That's it. Those are the key terms explained part 1. I hope this was helpful. This process, here's the thing I want to say. This process of repertorization is, as you can probably imagine, can be kind of painstaking. Like it's a very time-consuming thing if it's done well. And so, but the thing is, in order for homeopathy to be incredibly valuable and incredibly effective, it kind of needs to be done well. We don't just want to shoot from the hip and choose one remedy out of thousands and thousands. We want to make a very educated, guess, a very well-informed guess of the remedy that is prescribed. And by doing a very well vetted, well thought out repertorization, it's what allows the homeopath to find the best fitting remedy. Now, as you can imagine, as one goes through this entire process, like, sometimes it can be like, ooh, could be either of these remedies, or hey, maybe it could be a couple of different remedies. So what I want to say here is be patient with your homeopath. If you see one, be patient with them. It's kind of a confusing process. It's kind of complex. And they're there and they want to help you. They want to make you feel better. And they want to find the remedy that's going to do that for you. And they may not necessarily get the remedy right on the first go. Like it's kind of a hard thing, So what I would say is, especially if you're new to homeopathy, and you choose to go to a homeopath, be patient with them. They might not get the remedy on the first go, and that's okay. Over time, with the more information that you're able to provide and the clearer that your symptom picture is, the better they'll be able to find the simillimum for you. The other thing that I want to say here, right, is and there's nothing wrong with, even the Orem example I gave the other day, kind of looks and sounds a bit like Orem for the patient that I had in clinic, but, I could have been wrong and maybe that remedy would have done nothing, And so what I also want to say here is, even if you're choosing, I got lucky, it was an educated guess, but also I got lucky, I didn't know that it was going to help. I was just doing the best that I could do and using what I learned in class and applying that on the spot in clinic. And in that case, I did the no thing. I didn't do a repertorization. I was just like, wow, all these keynotes that Aurum Metallicum has, this person is presenting with it, was a very clear, obvious picture. And so I was like, you know what? We have nothing to lose by trying it. We might as well give it a go. And it ended up being incredibly beneficial for that patient. So grateful for that, by the way. But I say that to say is you too might say, you know what? I'm going to try a remedy without doing a repertorization. And you know what? You might not get the remedy right. And the remedy might not be helpful. That doesn't mean that homeopathy isn't helpful. And it doesn't mean that homeopathy can't be helpful for you. But it might just mean you just didn't get the right remedy on the first go. And that's okay. So in this case, don't give up. My advice to you, or my encouragement to you, would be don't give up on homeopathy, and consider, a different remedy, maybe a different process of finding the remedy, or maybe working with a homeopath, and having someone whose job it is and training has been, to undergo this kind of intense, complex process of repertorization and allow them to help you with all their training. So that's all I have to say about that. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow.